What is up, you muffin munchy muggles? Welcome to Fiction and Reality. Today we're diving into the cruel and twisted world of Reanimal, a survival horror adventure game that follows a group of children's efforts to escape a grotesque and distorted world, an inverted mirror of their fractured, war-torn trauma, involving occult-like blood rituals and body horror the likes you've never seen before. This video will explore the innumerable abominations encountered along the children's journey, but more importantly, the meaning behind them and how each encounter reflects the disturbed nature of our reality. The Sniffer is a monster within Reanimal who captivates the two-faced nature and cruelty of adults. Our first taste of Reanimal is that of an isolated and fissured world, almost starved with only eerie towers of blinking red light to pierce the smoggy waters. And where you'd hope there would be adults to restore order, well, instead you're met with them donning masks. The children first encounter the Sniffer dallying within an empty trolley lot, before following him into the bathroom where, well, the boy and girl watch the Sniffer TP, or in layman's terms, teleport like Doctor Strange through dead corpses, reversing to different sections of the world to hunt down more victims to make skin suits out of, which he wears and maintains in order to conceal the true predatory nature that nests within him, and to create minions that keep his victims on the move. Outside of the corrupt inversion, humanity is well aware of the wolf in sheep's clothing symbolism. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing, those who maintain appearances only to lure in others in order to enact their own selfish wills or desires. Let's take the chase in the woods, for example. After the boy and the girl in hood escape his grasp, being the predator that he is, he hunts them down and lures them in with an ice cream truck. And once they're cornered, he even attempts to coax Hood into the ice cream truck by offering him an actual ice cream cone before snatching him up and driving off in the woods. I mean, your boy Hood should have placed an order for the triple mocha chunk swirl since he was getting yoinked anyway. The Sniffer is symbolic of the predators within human society who often operate under the guise of something credulous in order to lower the defenses of the gullible. The purpose of the Sniffer is to reinforce that those who prey on you could take the form of anything or anyone, and that appearances on the surface should not call one to equate the prestige or nature of its reputation to the authentic nature of any being or entity in any form or fashion. Appearances can be managed just as the Sniffer manages his own, ironing out his snakeskins. If we were to take a look at the Sniffer's attire, we see it poorly attempts to masquerade itself as something with professional standing, as if it's something that should demand respect at first sight. But of course, the warped appearance protruding from the fabric beneath unveils the true corrupt nature that's funneled within its tailored suit. When the boy and the girl track the Sniffer to this abandoned town, they find him leading Hood by the hand into a distorted cinema theater. A cinema, mind you, filled with dozens and dozens of his victims who are likely sedated, who are trapped in a comatose state while the Sniffer drags Hood to the next room under the airings of a very disturbing movie that plays on screen. They are, in my opinion, the manifestation of the Sniffer's gluttony, humanity's greed, along with the representation of the complacency and passivity in witnessing moral depravity, something not so recently foreign to us regarding a certain man in a certain island, and the meandering response to the severity of the crimes at hand. As the famous saying goes, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. While I know most of you assume the Sniffer is called the Sniffer because he likes to sniff little orphans, it's more likely so due to his obsessive dog-like behavior, crawling down on all fours, hunting and tracking compulsively to feed his hunger. I mean, you gotta give it to the guy. He even goes so far as to hunker down and slide on the kids with a tricycle, pedaling them down like his life depends on it. Even when the kids are able to steal the gasoline from the gas pump, outrunning the Sniffer's slithering nest of skin crawler suits, then make a getaway using his own ice cream truck, the obsession of losing something that he wants but doesn't own steers him to do something as crazy as stepping out in the middle of the street and getting hit by this ice cream truck beaming down the middle of the street. Humanity has a long stretch of seeking out things they have no ownership over, and after being denied in forward approaches to acquiring it, settling on using force to feed that compulsion without even considering the aftermath or consequences of what those actions leave behind. The first and foremost being restricting the other party's autonomy and freedom of choice. The Sniffer was punished for his obsession to control with a slew of Scooby-Doo coconut bonks to the head, before meeting the fate of most who allow blind compulsions to drive their actions, and instead of sniffing some more orphans on his island, ended up sniffing the dirt instead. The Pelican. In Reanimal, we witnessed a boat full of kids drifting toward Bandage, who waves passively back at them atop a plank before calamity strikes once again, and he's kidnapped by this giant grotesque-looking pelican. Now, Reanimal is big on trying to capture the predatory nature of humanity, either directly through twisted reenactments of historical events, warped disfigured beings like the Sniffer, or by inverting the standing reputations of prestigious symbols like the Pelican, which usually symbolizes self-sacrificial love, charity, and resurrection. On their way to save Bandage, the children find themselves meandering through a field of flowers and then entering a farm where a slew of pigs are gorging and feasting in pursuit of staving their hunger. The thing with gluttony is that most focus on the fact of consuming compulsively and how it speaks to the greedy internal compass of the individual. But what about the world around them? The pigs are ignorant and in fact indifferent to the environment and world around them, with the exception of the big ham munching meat at the far stretch of the farm, who's found cannibalizing another pig and even lets the children off with a warning to leave. Which, let me tell you, I would have skedaddled if I heard that shit. This was likely less the pig actually feeling threatened, but more annoyed at them disturbing his feasting, thus bringing him back to awareness of the reality of the atmosphere around him, which gluttony tends to drown out with indifference. The kids make their way to the lighthouse where the pelican took bandage and trapped him inside a cage. Now, once again, this speaks to the overriding theme that Reanimal is trying to share with the world. Why would a pelican, something usually symbolizing self-sacrificial love and charity, trap a child in a cage? Why not eat it and devour it? It has no young to feed. So why restrict its freedom? Compulsions, predation, and control distort the stability of the world, invert and corrupt the core of the world. And all the same, the creatures mirror our reality. When you think of Reanimal in the scheme, the encounters, the creatures, and the meaning behind them don't require that much fabric to sew the needle. The self-sacrificial love of the pelican isn't self-sacrificial for love in the world of Reanimal, but is inverted as a representation of the lengths humanity will go to control another being or entity, as long as it means that hunger for obsession is satiated, which in this case is self-sacrificial love for control rather than raw love itself, which many will risk setting themselves on fire for if it means they burn up while still holding the reins. Speaking of burning things up, why don't you cook up that like button right now? If you are enjoying the video, go ahead and hit that like button. I put a lot of work into these videos, takes a lot of time to edit and make, and it would be much appreciated if you show some self-sacrificial love. In Reanimal, after escaping the pelican and saving Bandage, the girl and boy find themselves entering the clock tower of the orphanage, occupied by a horde of creepy sand porcelain-looking statues that you get the luxury of swinging around and laying down the pipe on. These moving sand statues are known as the Spider Kids, orphans to the giant furry spider-looking monster called the Mother, and one of the most striking shots we're met with is one of the orphans sitting atop the mantle of a throne while looking down upon the other orphans. This is a twisted depiction of hierarchies, in my opinion, blindly protecting power and the consequences that follow from doing so. The orphans attack the boy and the girl, but interestingly enough, in the throne room you will see that the orphan wearing the crown does not descend from the throne to help them, but rather to hide while the rest of the orphans get their heads smashed to bits. This is unilateral undying loyalty for nothing in return. Humanity's devotion to thrones and power without many times questioning the validity of that power. You give authority to those who you believe will use the power to protect your interests, but the validity of that authority can only be tested in living conditions and circumstances. How many people in power, for example, fled their own countries and left their citizens to be bombarded in war or taken over by the opposition simply because they never shared the same mutual respect or loyalty for their people, but rather were addicted and swore their loyalty to the power that was granted to them by the masses. The orphans, their hierarchy, and the drones, it's a calling to not blindly accept authority through words or bravado, but to truly test and measure its validity through action and nothing less. The spider mother in Reanimal is a distortion of the normal parent-child dynamic. We get our first glimpse of the mother when the sand orphans lower a pig into a pit for her to gorge upon. After being captured, the kids are lowered into a pit to be fed to her after a failed attempt to retrieve Bucket, and find her eerily crawling up the wall with its creepy appendages. If we were to even think about what the spider mother represents at base, it's a complete inversion of what a mother is. A mother is supposed to be giving, but instead the sand orphans feed the mother to stave off its hunger. A mother is supposed to be loving. This spider mother represents the twisted spiral of love, once again in the purview of predation, control, and the compulsion to devour. Once again, just like the pelican, the mother does not kill Bucket. We encounter a multitude of disfigured and deformed entities in Reanimal. The core of their essence, just like the spider mother, is to possess and control rather than to kill the children simply so that the itch, the cravings that emerge from not having ownership over something that rejects its authority and will subside. Upon attempting to escape with Bucket, we see the mother spit out hordes and hordes of children to chase down the girl and the boy. This is a creature that is marked not just by its infatuation with control, but its proclivity to weaponize its affection, manipulating love for its own selfish vices. The mother essentially has the orphans do her bidding for her, hunting down adversaries, risking their lives first and foremost before putting herself in the fray. It's the inversion of love, generally speaking, and that when distorted, you become a slave to someone's emotions rather than someone whose will, values, and authorities is respected mutually. Love blinds people as it blinds the orphans. She offers protection, but in exchange for sacrifices or food. The spider mother in her essence is a distortion of the unconditional love of a mother, one who devours the welfare and vitality of her own children, and also a mirror into our reality, reflecting how being bound by unreciprocated love enslaves one to servitude. It challenges the established scope of love on a broad scale as well, questioning whether love itself is truly unconditional, which I personally do not think it is. The children are sent out like drones, having been strung by blind devotion, loyalty, love. But as with all things of people who think they can dance around the blade while swinging it, love is double-edged. The Brook Horse in Reanimal is charged with more meaning than it first appears with on the surface. After rescuing Bucket in Reanimal, you find a monster called the Brook Horse, which you have to shoot with the shell of a tank to clear the path to the final island. The Brook Horse is a mythic creature in Scandinavian tradition that grows its back large enough to accommodate multiple people, alluring in its appearance and beauty, but deadly in its intentions to plunge you into the river and drown you. It symbolizes the unpredictable nature of the water and is a cautionary tale to keep children away from lakes and streams. The deception here is that the children thought that the tank shell that smashed into the Brook Horse had defeated it. The lesson of deceptive appearance is once again reinforced as it was with the Sniffer. After traveling toward the last island, finding their path obstructed by a well, which will become the mantle for their great awakening of consciousness, the children venture into the depths of the water using scuba gear and once more encounter the Brook Horse, who looks like he's been lying dead for quite some time, and even more so when they pluck that eye from its eye socket, only to find that they themselves have become the victims of the Brook Horse's deception. The children are deceiving themselves, thinking they can simply escape the cruelties of their fractured world and the distortions and consequences created by their own actions. The deception threads in when one believes they can escape those consequences, or when someone distorts the reality of the world. The children in Reanimal cannot escape the cruelties of their world any more than humanity can escape the history of its own cruelties. Their chase with the Brook Horse is a mirror into both their world and humankind's reality. What the children are stealing in this chase is not just an eye but consciousness. The blue whale itself represents the unconscious mind of humanity, and in this case, the children are stealing the Brook Horse's eye in order to implant it into the whale, like the Mangekyo Sharingan, which then stirs the waking of the conscious, represented by the awakening of the whale and its invitation for the children to see the brutality of the human spirit in its rawest form, an invitation for their loss of innocence. There's more to the final chapter of Reanimal than what's on the surface. The emergence of the sheep beast sparks the first series of events where the children are actually met with the life and death consequences of this purgatory. The primal instinct to look out for their own lives overtakes what inklings of empathy they had left for each other. The core message that's sewn in as they scale through the war-torn hellscape is this: it's the inflection point for their loss of innocence. I think the question Reanimal is trying to raise in this chapter is this: is human nature truly that distant from that of beasts or monsters within this world? On its face, no, but if we talk about the extremes all the way from the level of society down to the individual themselves, we all do maintain the capacity to become captive to the compulsions to control, possess, use, and devour the innocence of other people for our own selfish gain. The hellscape of war is a perfect environment to represent this loss of innocence. In some cases of war, you control the masses with a lie, make them feel they're fighting for a just and higher cause so they won't question the authenticity or validity of the power being granted to the person ordering them to go to war. Status, hierarchy, everything you thought pure and grand about the world, or your position in it, none of it matters if both sides have been convinced to kill each other while putting their own lives in the cauldron. Bullets kill all the same, and somewhere in between you justify yourself in pulling the trigger. War is an equalizer. Everything appears devout and just until you realize, as we witness with the scenes of the soldiers choosing to delete themselves rather than face the cruel realities of the distorted world, your primal instincts take over, and fear somehow becomes safer. Within Reanimal, the chaos of humanity unwinds its chain, as they then witness Bandage getting devoured whole by the ever-growing sheep beast. The children are snuffed out by this beast one by one, literally having their innocence physically devoured. The creators of Reanimal want us to know that you don't have to scar the world to be scorched by it. The children are literally trying to escape a world that tries to harm them at almost every turn, and are punished for it. Something we see paralleled with the soldier playing the piano, idly passing the time in this hellscape before the sniper takes his head off. Sometimes there is no explanation for the distortion of reality, but the animalistic, primitive actions of those who created the conditions. Just as we see the war trampling on in Reanimal, simultaneously we encounter the sheep beast. The world of Reanimal is kill or be killed, reflecting the primitive instinct of humanity's knack for self-preservation. The children run from car to car, initially dodging the sniper trying to snipe them, then end up having to blow it up with missiles in order to survive and save themselves. It's the same with the tank. After dodging a hellscape of shells, they eventually kill the guy who was shooting at them and take the tank for themselves on the last stretch through the war-torn wasteland, laying waste to all the soldiers in their path, and eventually running from the sheep beast in what I believe to be a pursuit symbolic of their efforts to avoid the loss of their innocence and the great conscious awakening to the distorted reality around them. Survival forces complicity, and eventually you stop asking whether or not what you're doing is right or wrong. Wake up to this. The children running from the sheep beast, which we call a monster, is no different from them running from the monster that is humanity. Bullets, shells, snipers, tanks, and predators all alike. That is their refusal to accept finding a way to live in the world as it is or was, which in many theories spinning out there is said to be the reason why they decided to sacrifice the girl to the demonic sheep spirit. The betrayal is yet another testament to how the animalistic nature of wanting to contort, possess, and control outcomes in spite of another being's autonomy mirrors the most primitive instinct of human nature that nests within all of us. And that is what Reanimal is, a reflection of the horrors of our world. Control, devour, prey, enslave. Reanimal is a twisted, cruel, and inverted scope of reality that elevates the beast-like elements of humanity that disrupt civility and bring forward ruin and decay. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of Reanimal. Let me know if there's something I miss. Is this a tale of the loss of innocence or something more? Also, I just want to thank everyone for 1,000 subscribers. I haven't thought of what I'm going to do for it, but there should be something. I mean, it's been a pretty long journey. I've been trying to be consistent as much as possible, but we've definitely got some things coming for you in the future. I want to expand upon this brand and channel and not just sort of close it into simply anime and gaming niches, but I think it has the capacity to be much more than that. And I want to hear some of you guys' ideas or recommendations, if you have any as well, of what you want me to upload and what you want to see. 1K subscribers is a checkpoint, and we will be pushing forward to the next one. With that being said, I am infinitely grateful to even be at this point, at this moment, as most people will never even get to the 1,000 subscriber mark at all. Thank you for the support. It is much appreciated, and there's much more to come. You can find and follow my IG page at lvamps23 and other socials in the link below. If you want more analysis of your favorite fictional characters or fictional worlds, go ahead and smash that like button, turn on that notification bell, and subscribe for more. The direction of progress is forward, and it's only up from here. With that, remember, if ever you're lost in a forest of your words, strip your mind from fantasy and look to the window of the world, and there your mind will run free.